Hi, everybody, and welcome to What's New in Microsoft Endpoint Manager Part 2. This is the second part of our two-part series overviewing Endpoint Manager news. My name is Steve Dispenza. I'm the Director of Program Management for Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
My name is Ramya Chitrakar, and I'm the Director of Engineering for Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
So this is part 2 of our two-part series on MAM, as I said, and I encourage you to check out part 1 if you haven't had a chance to do that yet for the overview and a bunch of other great demos of the product. For this session, what we're going to do is recap our overview a little bit of MAM, and we're going to talk about how it lets you manage your entire endpoint estate, whether cloud native or on-prem. We're going to talk through MAM and security in particular, including how it relates to zero trust. And then we're going to talk about how Microsoft Endpoint Manager for SMB works and a little bit about Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. Then Ramya will take us through a ton of new demos and we'll come back and close with some key takeaways and next steps. So we're going to go back to pick up where we left off in part 1 on your cloud management journey. Whether you're just starting out or you've deployed co-management or you are completely in the cloud, Microsoft Endpoint Manager is truly your hub to unify security, apps, access, compliance, and end user experience across your entire technology estate. Because of Microsoft 365's incredible breadth of signal and intelligence, MAM delivers analytics and data to keep you ahead of change so you can keep costs down and keep your organization running smoothly, whatever the future brings. I covered MAM broadly in part 1 of this talk, so now I'm just going to focus on security. The COVID transformation has meant that almost every organization in the world is dealing with remote productivity, with users working from homes and from other locations. It's never been more important to ensure uniform security policy, and MAM provides a rich set of capabilities to keep your organization safe and sound. Start with security baselines to ensure your organization is following best practices and to ensure uniform policy application across your organization. You can manage a host of security-specific policies across devices, including platform capabilities like encryption and firewall rules, and advanced threat protection from Microsoft Defender ATP. Then you can move on to risk-based access control. MAM can evaluate each endpoint's compliance and risk level in real time, and that can be fed into Azure AD Conditional Access, which is the most powerful access control system on the planet. And finally, deploy app control policies to provide policy compliance without fully managing the device. This is ideal for users bringing their own personally owned devices. With users working from so many locations, organizations need to deploy consistent policies and set consistent compliance requirements across the entire enterprise. That consistency, using the same policy either inside or outside corporate firewalls, is the foundation of zero trust. And endpoint management is the way this consistency is achieved. MAM can ensure that your zero trust policy is applied to all your assets in your enterprise across platforms and locations. Customers are working from home or from multiple locations, and they're using a broad set of devices, both personal and company owned. Cyber threats and phishing attacks have increased between 3 and 5 times. And in a recent survey, 89% of businesses said cybersecurity was a top IT priority, and 88% felt that they're losing control over their data, while 62% said they did not have the skills in-house to deal with the cybersecurity risks in the environment. Most businesses need IT help to ensure that they stay productive, connected, and safe from cybersecurity threats and data loss. And this is doubly true of small and medium businesses who often rely on a service provider to manage and secure their environment. Despite the challenges, our biggest takeaway during this time is that the rapid shift to secure remote work presents a huge opportunity for partners and SMBs. Successful partners in the SMB space are using Microsoft 365 Business Premium as a foundation on top of which they've built a managed security service practice. Because Microsoft 365 contains everything from Teams to Azure AD to Intune, what it can provide you is a roadmap to build ongoing managed services for your customers as you light up new services for them every 6 months. So you may start by lighting up Teams and conditional access, but then start managing their devices with Intune a few months later as part of a device lifecycle offering. We're investing in tooling for partners, including Microsoft 365 Lighthouse, which is dedicated to helping service providers deliver Microsoft 365 managed services across all their customers with higher standardization, automation, and auditing. Now, I'd like to welcome Ramya Chitrakar up to the virtual stage to take us through more incredible pieces of innovation that we're delivering in MAM. Ramya, take it away.
We showed you several exciting capabilities in Microsoft Endpoint Manager in part 1 of this session. Today, I'm going to walk you through a lot more such capabilities, which enables IT to optimize security and productivity in their organizations. Now, Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the convergence of intelligent cloud via Intune and intelligent edge via Config Manager. Now, whether you have pure cloud devices, pure on-premise devices, or really a mixture of both, we enable you to use the cloud that makes sense to you. Now, you can unlock immediate value by simply attaching to the cloud with a few simple steps. Today, I'm going to walk you through configuring Microsoft Defender antivirus policy on servers managed by Config Manager. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Here is the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. What I have done so far is to select the option in Config Manager to attach to the cloud. With that, all my Config Manager devices start showing up in the MAM console. Here is the all devices list, and as you can see, we can see devices that are managed by Intune, those that are co-managed, as well as devices that are purely managed by Config Manager. Now, one of the powerful capabilities the seamless attach enables is management and configuration of servers managed by Config Manager. Now, let me search for a device whose name contains CM01. As you can see, it's managed by Config Manager. In the device details, you see it's a Windows Server device. Now, let's leverage some powerful cloud attach functionality. CM Pivot allows you to run queries on managed devices in real time. Now, for this demo, let me run a query. So on this device, I'd like to find out services with the name containing antivirus and find their state. Let's go ahead and run this query. In a matter of a few seconds, you can see that the service has been stopped on the server. Now, we want Defender AV to be enabled on every single enterprise managed server. We are happy to announce that you can now deploy Defender AV policies for Config Manager managed devices from the MAM console. To do that, let's go to the Endpoint Security node. Under Antivirus, let's create a policy. I'll give it a name. I'll configure some settings to turn on the service. I'll assign this policy to a Config Manager collection, the Windows Server endpoints in this case, and go ahead and create the policy. Now, this policy is synced to Config Manager and then distributed to all the servers in that collection. Now, this showed you how we bring together the power of Config Manager and Intune together to provide the best unified endpoint management solution. Now, as you know, Autopilot provides amazing cloud value by hugely simplifying the provisioning and management of Windows 10 devices. It lets you get out of the tedious image managed business and ship devices directly to end users where they're able to power on and be productive in a matter of minutes. I'm very pleased to announce that you can soon use Autopilot for co-managed devices, wherein the Config Manager client installs as part of the Autopilot flow, and it is able to invoke task sequences targeted via Config Manager. Now, our Config Manager customers love and have used task sequences to configure a wide variety of things on operating systems and applications. Now, let me show you what that integration looks like. What I have here is a very familiar Autopilot flow wherein the user enters their corporate credentials. We find this device to be Autopilot registered to Contoso, and so we enroll the device to Intune, pushed on all the necessary security configs and certificates. Now, we had configured this device for co-management. So, as part of the enrollment status page, the Config Manager client is also installed. Now note, this invokes the provisioning task sequence which was targeted in Config Manager. Now, in my case, the task sequence was configured to restore the end user's files and settings. Now, once a user lands on the desktop, you will see that their files have been restored as configured by the task sequence. Now, this shows you how you can leverage pre-existing task sequences, strip out the OSD portions, and reuse actions to configure the operating system for co-managed devices via Autopilot. Now, let me show you one other such cloud value. Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center brings together and unifies experiences for IT admins. Today, I'm very pleased to announce that we're extending this unification to end users, and Company Portal is going to be the one place for end users for everything related to enterprise IT services. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Company Portal now supports applications from Config Manager as well as web apps from Azure AD and Office.com. Now, let me select the Office application. You can see it is deployed via Intune. You can go ahead and select Install. And you can monitor its progress in the Downloads and Updates tab. Now, let me select the Power BI application. You have the option of opening it in a browser, as this is a SaaS application from Azure AD My Apps. Now, let's say your organization had existing investments in some applications from Config Manager. You will be able to see those apps here in the Company Portal as well. Prosware is one such app. You can, of course, install it here from the Company Portal, and you can monitor its progress as well from the Downloads and Updates tab. Now, this shows you how Microsoft Endpoint Manager is providing unified experiences across the spectrum from IT pros to end users. Now, in times of the pandemic, there is a strong need for enabling remote work. You need to be able to treat your remote endpoints the same way as you treat your local endpoints. This is the crux of Zero Trust security, and Microsoft Endpoint Manager is mission critical to enable the Zero Trust goals. Now, it is key for IT admins to be able to provide secure access to corporate data, regardless of where their users work from and the level of management on their devices. They also need to respond both proactively and reactively to the security risks. Let me show you how Microsoft 365 is uniquely positioned to bring together the power of management and security. We are going to walk through some features that highlight this tight integration via Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Defender for Endpoint. The Endpoint Security node in Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the one-stop shop for security admins for everything related to endpoint security management. It's management integrated with security. Here, you can configure things like antivirus, disk encryption, firewall. Now, we also have security baselines, which are Microsoft recommended values for various security settings. We have previously shown you baselines for Windows, Office, Edge, etc. Now, these are some ways for security admins to proactively secure their organizations. Now, despite all the precautions taken by security admins, we live in a world of very sophisticated attacks. It becomes critical to respond to these fast. Now, endpoint security bridges the gap between SecOps and SecAdmins by reducing the time to react to these threats. Now, when Defender ATP is connected to MAM, we show additional capabilities here, such as security tasks, as well as device risk-based compliance. Let me walk you through the scenario for that. Recently, we announced Microsoft Defender ATP for Android, which installs a Defender agent on Android devices looking for malicious apps and malware. Defender ATP then provides a risk score based on the active malware of these devices to MAM, which then acts upon it by providing conditional access based on the device's risk score. Now, let me show you a device compliance policy to block risky Android devices. We'll select device compliance within the Endpoint Security node. Let's create a compliance policy on the Android Enterprise platform. and select a work profile type. I'll give it a name. For compliance setting, what I will select here is the risk score that is acceptable to my organization. In this case, I want to select clear, which means for a device to be compliant, I expect it to be clear of all malware. Let's go ahead and deploy this policy. Now here is an Android device, a work profile device, which has installed a test virus app from the Play Store. You'll notice that the minute I do that, Defender detects this as a threat and ups the risk score of this device. Now the user launches Outlook, gets blocked from email, conditional access kicked in. The user remediates by uninstalling the test virus app from their device. And once they do that, they're able to access their email successfully. Now this shows you how these dedicated security admin experiences integrated with the SecOps tools are able to break the silos of IT and security, enabling both the teams to respond to security risks in an efficient and effective manner. Next, let me show you some advanced compliance policy capabilities we are introducing to further enhance your conditional access toolset. Custom compliance is a feature that makes the compliance platform extensible by allowing IT admins to make their own compliance settings. To show you how versatile this capability is, we have partnered with Dell to show how IT admins can create custom compliance policy to secure their new Dell devices. Let me go ahead and create a compliance policy for the Windows 10 platform. I'll give it a name. Under compliance settings, I'll select custom compliance. First, I need to provide a PowerShell script that detects the state of the settings I care about. Next, we need to provide a JSON file where we define the custom settings and their desired compliant values. We parse the file contents and show them here for review. And that's about it. After this point, you can enable conditional access so that you can block access to corporate resources based on this new custom compliance policy. Now, we have talked about the need for remote work in times of the pandemic. People oftentimes need to access their corporate resources such as email from their personal devices while working from home. IT wants to enable this scenario, but they must do so securely. Microsoft Edge provides the most secure browser for enterprises. Let me walk you through how Microsoft Endpoint Manager is enabling security configurations for Edge. First, we'll walk you through Managed App Config for Edge on Windows 10 unmanaged devices. Let's start with the App Configuration Policies node in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager console. We'll add a managed app configuration. Now, we've had app configuration policy for iOS and Android devices. We are very pleased to announce the support for Windows managed app configs. Now, let me go ahead and give it a name. We'll select the app. I'll search for Edge. You see now there's a new option for Windows. Next, we configure Edge settings. We can provide a default homepage URL. You can also provide managed favorites, so the end users will be able to see these links in their favorites bar. Then I'll enable the Internet Explorer mode. Now, several of our customers have legacy applications which require Internet Explorer to be displayed. Now, this setting will allow them to be displayed from within the Edge Chromium without having to switch the browser to Internet Explorer. Now, after this point, I'll go ahead and deploy this to end users. Now, Switching over to the device side. Here is my personal device. I am remote working from home and I'd like to access my corporate email from my personal device which is not enrolled to my organization. I launch Edge. I try to access my corporate email. You can see I'm signed into my personal profile here. I enter my corporate credentials. Conditional access kicks in and tells me that I need to be signed into Edge with my work account. So I switch profiles to my corporate profile. I go ahead and sign in. I select my corporate account, and because I've already signed in once, single sign-on prevents me from having to sign in yet again and provide my credentials. Now this time, I try to access my work email once again. And you see, I was granted access. Now since Managed App Config was pushed down, you will notice that Edge has been configured with my enterprise customizations such as homepage of Fabricam. The Corp Managed Favorites have been configured as well. And if I select the Fabricam Customer Visits website, you will notice it's a Silverlight application built on the legacy IE infra. And I was able to launch this site from within Edge in the IE compact mode. I did not have to switch the browser. Now let's say you have managed Windows 10 devices and wish to configure Edge. We will soon provide you the capability to lift and shift Chrome configuration to Edge. Now let's say you have an on-premises GPO with settings needed for your organization. Group Policy Analytics will do the heavy lifting of mapping these settings to Edge MDM. In this case, the GPO with Chrome setting has 100% mapping to MDM for Edge. Now we have extended this tool to allow you to seamlessly migrate this GPO. Now let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I'll select my GPO, and as you can see, it has 100% support in MDM. I'll go ahead and select Migrate. You can select all the settings that you wish to migrate. In my case, I'm going to select all of them. We automatically create a policy out of this. We'll give the policy a name. And after this point, you assign it like you would any other policy. We also have a PowerShell script approach to this in preview, and this will all be released as part of our overall group policy to MDM migration capability. Now let's check a device with this policy pushed. Let me open up Edge and check all the policy that it has applied to it. You can see that the Show Home button is one of the settings that are migrated from Chrome. It is now available and configured in Edge.
Now, this shows you how Endpoint Manager is enabling remote work via the most secure browser, Microsoft Edge. Next, I would like to shift gears and talk about our exciting new investments and announcements in the small-medium business space. While the pandemic has impacted most businesses, it is particularly challenging for small-medium businesses who have the same need for remote work and security. Now, they depend heavily on managed service providers or MSPs to manage their environments. Having entrusted their cloud environments to these MSPs, businesses expect them to bring their specialized expertise as well as have deep and proactive engagement. In order to be able to scale to these needs, MSPs need to be operationally efficient. With Microsoft 365 Business Premium, we are making significant investments to enable MSPs to be successful in achieving these goals. I'm very pleased to announce Microsoft 365 Lighthouse at Ignite. It enables MSPs by hugely simplifying onboarding, monitoring, and management of all their customers, and do so at scale, having higher automation, higher standardization, as well as efficiency. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
This is the new Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. It enables MSPs to provide M365 managed services at scale across all their customers. Let's say I'm an MSP. First, we've made onboarding really simple with a sign-up process that will automatically onboard all customers to which I have delegated access permissions to. I'm here on the homepage where I see the health across all my customers. At this point, we are starting with device compliance and Microsoft Defender antivirus. Let's drill into device compliance. I can see the different compliance states for each of my customers. The top chart gives me the trend view to understand the compliance state over time. I even get recommendations. For instance, in this case, it says 15 of my 17 tenants do not have conditional access policies configured. Now I can click here for the next steps to take and configure conditional access for them. Under devices, I can see the individual devices across all my tenants. If I click on a specific device, it even points you to Microsoft Endpoint Manager to take device-specific actions. Now, moving on to policies, I can see all the compliance policies across all my customers and the states for each of these policies. Now, lastly, under threat management, what we show you is the Defender antivirus threat landscape across your customers. Now, this is just the beginning of a journey enabling MSPs. Moving forward, we'll be expanding our capabilities here, such as the ability to configure policies and manage multiple customers at a time. We'll broaden the workloads for things like user management, customer insights, and other productivity workloads within Microsoft 365.
Now, you have heard us talk about our ecosystem. Microsoft partners are a huge part of that ecosystem. We are leaders in management and security for enterprises, and we are excited to bring that same capability to small, medium businesses. If you are an MSP, I highly encourage you to check out Microsoft 365 and sign up for a preview at AKAMS Lighthouse Next Step. Steve, now let me hand it back to you to close us off today.
Thanks, Ramya. That's a ton of incredible stuff. And remember, this is part 2. If you missed part 1, go back and check it out for even more great demos. So to close, let's quickly recap some of the key strengths that Microsoft Endpoint Manager brings to your enterprise. You can use MAM to deploy Zero Trust. It all starts with consistent management and compliance. Use MAM for zero-touch provisioning to provide the best possible new device experience to your end users. Get new insights from Endpoint Analytics. This is an easy way to unlock new insights about your enterprise in an area we're investing heavily in. Use Unified Endpoint Management, which is an industry-unique capability that gives you multiple options to getting cloud value for your Windows 10 PCs. So you can take whatever path to cloud management makes the most sense for your company. And finally, Microsoft's unmatched expertise is available to ensure your deployment is a success. Thanks for attending our talk. I want to leave you with a few next steps before we close. First, go check out part 1 of this talk in case you missed it for even more great demos and content. Second, if you haven't already, check out Brad's keynote covering modern enterprise management broadly. Third, Cloud Attach is easy. If you haven't already, go tenant attach your config manager sites. It's super fast, and it's basically risk-free, and it lights up a ton of new capabilities, and more are coming. And finally, go check out Endpoint Analytics. It's a powerful way to gain insight into your endpoints. We've talked about a bunch of other stuff throughout these 2 talks, and this is just the beginning. You're going to find these and more talks available at our video hub at aka.ms/Microsoft Ignite 2020/MEM. And if you missed any of the live sessions here, make sure you catch them as well. And once again, go to aka.ms/Microsoft Ignite 2020/MEM to learn more. We'll see you there.
Thank you everyone for joining us.